All right. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome. Well, we made it past April Fools, you know. And on the news, they were the weather lady, or the weatherman and the news lady. She baked him something. She said she gave it to him in a tin, and it had aluminum foil on it. Opened it up, and it had 3 E's on it, green, brown E's, brownies. And the guy's colorblind, so they fooled each other because brownies. Well, I don't get this. The E's, well, they're brown. Oh, brown, I'm colorblind.
Okay.
All right, roll call.
Mark Foltz.
Here.
Mark Frazier.
Here.
Francis Griffith.
Here.
Kelly Schmitz here. Troy Farmer. Here.
You've got your agenda.
You say you needed to add the parking lot?
No, we're not ready to add a parking lot yet.
No, we just need ideas.
We got a couple. We know what we're doing. All right,
But we're not ready to approve something yet.
the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Troy?
Second.
Mark? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, March 1st minutes of the meeting.
Motion approved. Second.
Motion to approve. Seconded by Butch. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Public comments. We'll start with the sheriff's report.
Hello, I'm Deputy Kirby, Shaywaska County Sheriff's Office. The stats you guys have here, nothing too big here. The most of the stats was traffic stops, which is good. I know 52 has been an issue as far as traffic speed. Other ones are BOLs. Dispatch gets BOLs, be on the lookout for possible drunk drivers or anything swerving over the road, so we got quite a few of those out lately. 911 hang-ups is a big thing lately. We'll call and not answer back, so we send somebody out to make sure people are all right. We try to emphasize to kind of at least call us back or answer a text. They usually send a text to try to save us time from going out to people's houses and making sure everything's all right.
Is there a trend with any particular, is it kids or? Is it...
It's probably more or less, not so many kids lately, but it's just random calls, everybody.
And you can trace those back, right?
Well, sometimes they're phase 2, so it puts us in an area, so we'll check the area and then we'll come back. Or they'll get a good number with an address, we'll go out and check it, usually it's pretty alright, but we try to get people they send a text out to have them respond, or they try to call them back, so we tell people to try to answer, so it saves us a little bit of time.
Yeah.
We got assist other departments, whether it's the fire department, ambulance, or other PDs. We got 8 of those. Hazards, a lot of those are typically on the highway, stuff in the roadway. And that's about it. Nothing major as far as any break-ins lately or anything major like that, which is good.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mark, Cecil.
Well, we
You may.
bought a used ambulance. Did we get that guy?
Just got home today.
Other than that, not a whole lot going on that hasn't been going on, except for what Guy's going to do later in the agenda.
Talk about the income, so to speak.
The assessment.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mark. All right. DDA, we did meet. We had a special meeting at the DDA, and it was March 23rd at 6:30. Well attended. Only had the gentleman who is on vacation in Arizona. He didn't come. And then another person absent. But they voted to approve paving that we'd already said we would contribute on Rose Boulevard. So we went. It was a 6-0. Motion passed 6-0. So that was good. It was Michigan State was playing basketball that night, so it was a pretty quick meeting. So there you go. Zoning, we had several zonings this time. We had a person on Lansing Road, it's all cleaned up, it's looking good, houses for sale. Got another one that's nuisance, Rupert Road. We we got one on Ellsworth, down the road from us, junk and debris, and we got, the poles on Thornapple, which are too close to the road. And, Troy and I had a meeting last week, on the property that the DDA owns, and, try to get that approved approved, get it rezoned and sell it. But, we met with Pete Preston after the meeting.
Oh, that's where you're, I was wondering
We
where
talked-
you're going with this.
Quite a bit, several different things we talked about, and I said, do we need to get Nick, who's the enforcer, the gentleman that enforces our code enforcement for us? And he said, no, I'm gonna do it myself. I'm not gonna put Nick through that anymore. And give me 2 weeks, which I'm gonna call him tomorrow. Give me 2 weeks and I'll plan on meeting with those people there that get them poles. I'll start, if I have to, I'll find them every day. Every day. I said, okay.
So just to add to the zoning thing, yes, the county planning commission did approve the rezoning request on the Talbot property, so now it just goes to the full board of commissioners, they're meeting this month. And assuming it's approved there, then we can close it.
Troy says they meet 3 times.
All right, you meet on
Monday,
everything
Wednesday,
3
and
times,
Thursday.
right?
Monday,
So
Wednesday, and Thursday.
Mark didn't believe me at first, so
He showed me that. I said, oh.
Depends on what committee you're on.
it'll go to economic and physical development, but
So-
you vote
so
on
they're-
every,
yeah,
you go to
they're
the committee,
Mondays.
then committee of the whole, and then, I mean, you vote on everything 3 times.
Actually, that committee votes on it on Monday night,
Right.
and everybody votes
Wednesday.
on it Wednesday.
Thursday. And we had three trailers rezoned. We had a 30 by 48 structure, concrete slab there,
Pole barn.
pole barn. And that was it.
May I inquire, have you talked to Pete at all about the house at Church Road and 52? What,
Taylor property. The burnout
I
tree.
mean, it's
Yes, I've talked
sitting
to
there
Nick. Yes.
abandoned.
Yes, I've talked to Nick about that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Has he,
There's only so many things we can throw at them, and they don't get many of them ever done, so, but that you have talked to
The
him.
last, 2 or 3 times. The last time I told, Justin told me that there's money available for demo, and so I I put that in Nick's here, and he was gonna call him back again. But that's the person that got a hold of Bob Taylor, and talked to Bob, supposedly, and
Supposedly it's been sold,
sold.
but
we think.
but they're not recording any documents,
Not
so
yet.
I don't know what that means.
Well, supposedly it was sold
Yeah,
to the guy that has the landscape
Is it
yard.
Brunswick?
Right, but they're not, but they haven't recorded anything or turned in any paperwork,
Because-
so in the eyes of us, it has not been sold.
Bob cannot apply for the demolition grant, the Blake grant. It can't be the property owner that held it when it happened.
Oh,
So it has to be, either it has to go
well, that's why they got. a
Either
hold
it has to go to under the auspices of the land bank, or it has to be owned by Bennington Township, or it has to be owned by a new owner, and then they can,
So the new owner, if they truly did buy it, can then apply for it.
yes.
And
Because
we-
I think the new owner is just going to use it as a storage that he farms, and so he's gonna
I think
just
you're
use it to park stuff there.
I think you're
Yeah.
So I think his plan is to tear it down, but no, you're right, Tom, somebody needs to do, and as a county commissioner, feel free to mention it to the zoning
Well,
board.
I'll tell you more about that when we get to the.
I just want to be sure that I understand the record of what's developed.
No, it should be-
I'm
it should be
talking
done.
about Church Road and
Yeah.
52,
Yeah, no, we know what
the
you're talking
abandoned
about.
home, okay,
The house that's half burnt.
The half that's house
Yeah,
burned,
yeah.
and been that way for 2 years.
at least.
Yeah, no, it's been mentioned
So-
before, but feel free to keep mentioning it to those people. The more they hear about it, I mean, it's squeaky wheel gets the grease. That's apparently how things work up there, so.
Well, Zan called me and wanted us to burn it down the rest of the way. And I
Who
told
did?
him,
The new guy that's
Zane
buying it.
Brodsky.
Oh, see, okay. Oh,
Yeah,
Steve
Nickname Zan. I've known him forever.
Zabrowski, yeah.
Is there enough left to burn down the rest of the?
We can't legally do that.
Oh,
We have to be able to get some training sessions out of it, so I told him no. And knowing Zan the way I do, I fully expected it to be burning in the middle of one night, but it hasn't happened yet.
Well,
okay.
like I said, he's supposedly buying it, but then they
Yeah.
said they weren't gonna write anything down. I mean, it was
He told me.
I didn't ask any details on it, but in our eyes, it hasn't been sold.
I'm glad I didn't do anything then, because he told me he bought it, so.
Well, that's what he told us too, but he said he didn't have
And
any.
that's what he told Nick also. Nick thought so, you know,
Because I know for you to do it, you have to have a deed, and no deed exists.
so far. So. Okay, the county commissioner, Tom.
Yes, well, a couple of things. I don't know how much the township is keeping up on it, but the new materials handling statute, solid waste is now known as materials. The county, the state has issued new regulations that require the county to develop a new plan. And I think we've got until the latter part of 2024 to rewrite our plan and adapt it to what the state desires now. The thrust of it is going to be more recycling, which usually goes over like a lead balloon with a lot of the
So is it just
local
called material or
governments.
waste
So
material?
it's the solid waste,
Yeah, yeah.
trash.
I'm on the.
That's the landfill committee, let's call it that.
Yeah, I'm on the county landfill committee, and although we haven't met as yet, but that's probably not a big issue right now because the state has just issued, and I think the director of what they now call Eagle is holding it, and he's gonna issue the new rule shortly because that kicks in the time limits that we have to get it done. But you're gonna hear more about that coming up. I'm also on the Public Safety and Courts Committee, and we do have a problem with, of course, at the jail, and the sheriff is well aware of this, that the, for juveniles, we really don't have adequate facilities to confine them there, and, but there is, there's a move to expand the county child care fund, which, and expand the Indigent Defense Committee with youth defense standards, which they're going to develop. And of course, as we know, as a former state level employee, the state always is good at promulgating these rules and not necessarily too concerned about how the locals complete it. But that, those are being worked on. You know that the circuit court has moved to the Memorial Hospital. They're holding court there because of the work being done in the,
I thought they went over
Courthouse.
to the building in the park.
No, they moved them to the hospital.
They're in the hospital.
yeah. It's in the hospital, they have the big auditorium there.
Okay.
And then some of the agencies, I think Treasury and,
Clerk treasurer,
The
registered
registered
deeds and
deed.
equalization are in the old Griffin Hall.
You're in-
yeah. And,
They started work on that.
but the point here is that any of your constituents that have an issue, our constituents have an issue, they've got to go to these new locations. And so that is underway, and the work in the courthouse is getting underway.
So Tom, I just have a question, and maybe, I don't know if you know the answer to it or not. There was no way to accommodate court at the district court building? I mean, it just seems, it's gotta be tying up a lot of sheriff's personnel and everything else to shuttle people from Corunna to the north side of Owasso, and it seemed I mean, I've heard things, and I don't, they aren't official statements, but it just seemed like we could have figured, something could have been figured out there.
Well, you raise a good point, because there are 2 courtrooms in the district court building, but we're down to 1 judge and a magistrate.
So my understanding is that the courtrooms weren't large enough for circuit court trials.
I've also heard that there's judges that can't all play nice together, and that's, one of the things behind, I mean, it's gonna cost the taxpayers a lot of money to do this.
Yeah,
And it just,
it's already costing us
yeah.
quite a bit.
I mean, the hospital leased it to them reasonably, but I mean,
Yeah.
tying up tons of personnel, I mean, that's a lot of, that's, instead of walking across the parking lot, I assume they're tying up probably a couple deputies, to do that all day, or corrections people, or, something.
Yeah.
I was just curious if there had been any discussion at the commissioners, because
There-
ultimately, you guys are in charge of the buildings,
Yeah, when
right?
I got there,
Yeah,
it was a
decide.
fait accompli for me, but, and everybody, the attitude was pretty much, as you mentioned, the hospital was reasonable in what it's costing us to do that. And I think the attitude is, well, a lot of this work is being done with the so-called COVID money, and the commission recognizes our slender budget, but I think that COVID was a boon to.
I thought that was last, wasn't there a grant that covered a lot of the work on the courthouse?
No, they're using the COVID money, they're using ARPA money for it.
Yeah,
I was
it's-
told it was a grant.
Did you?
Yeah.
Heard that?
Well, it sort of was.
Yeah.
Well, see, in its cost additional, I know the sheriff has had to
Reprieve.
provide additional support to those agencies that have moved over to what they call the old Griffin
Right.
home. And so, yes, there are those costs too, and there were issues of getting, it was so noisy in there with computers going or something that they had to go out and purchase them. They were on like a concrete floor.
Yeah, they're in a gym,
Yeah,
basically,
yeah.
and it
And
sounds like
it
you're
was
talking to somebody
noisy.
in a call center when you call up there, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously the building had to have work done and all to it, it seemed like, it's one of those things, like,
Yeah.
could it have been done differently? But I know those decisions were made before you were there.
Yeah, but I think the attitude was, we got this COVID money, ARPA money, and they were gonna take advantage of that regardless of,
Because it could have been used for the jail too,
Or
just remember
another
that.
shift.
I mean, that, because, we have all the work, like you mentioned, on the jail, and the people have said twice now in my memory, no to a new bond on the jail, but we still gotta do something about it, so. That's all, I'll be quiet.
That's true though, that's true.
let's
I
see.
think they're getting a new roof, right?
That's done,
Oh, yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's been done.
They got that ARPA money.
I did want to mention too, we're part of an opioid class action lawsuit against a number of companies, including a company called Teva, Allergen, CVS, and Walmart. And I think right now, we're working on it goes to the health department. $1 million is kind of our initial, but it, of course, has to be oriented toward dealing with the opioid crisis. And there's a class action lawsuit, which means a large number of plaintiffs, including the states, and then the state gives us a certain percentage. So for our county, we've gotten $1 million. So, I mean, the recovery from this class action, with a class action, you lump all the defendants together and all the plaintiffs together, the states, And then, so you have just one lawsuit that covers all these multitude of parties. And it's also a good way for a particular law firm to get a lot of fees, because they got a bunch of maybe smaller cases handled as one, and they still get a same percentage of it. But it is the Larry Johnson and the Health Department, and I'm on the Health Committee, so they have been getting quite a bit of money, and that's because mine went off just a few minutes ago. So,
Sorry, complicated game. Just lost all sleep, I'm sorry.
oh. I know it, does that mean I should show up?
No, not at all.
So who got $1 million?
It goes to the Health Department. There are guidelines on what they can use it for. And there is, so we had one round and we got about $1 million. We just signed on for another round of this stuff, I think it was last month.
Have a building and have these people that need help go to it, or?
Not necessarily
There's
that.
criteria what they have to use it for. I mean, but it's supposed to be things tied to problems caused by the opioid. I mean, it's not just supposed to be a blank.
Preventing the problem itself.
Yeah, it's like, a lot of it is educating the people about the drug, potential problems with the drugs. You wouldn't think it would need a lot of education, the way.
No, I think it's more enforcement and stuff. I thought it would be
You think so?
a better avenue, but.
Yeah.
But Larry's one of your better department heads,
He's,
so.
yeah, he's a good
He's a good
man,
guy.
and he's working on it.
You should have that meeting, Wes.
Hopefully, some of the money goes to the frontline people that have to deal with this, like the law enforcement and EMS.
Good.
Yeah, because I heard the drugs that those pens reverse are getting to the point where those pens don't work anymore.
Well, you can get them over the counter in quite a few places, they're free.
Well, yeah, I think the charge us is like it's
Yeah.
$160, $200 a pen or a.
I just don't, it's one of
We
those
could use,
things
I think
that.
one week we used 7 of them in a
understand.
week, just me and another guy.
Yeah.
So it's like, do the drug court.
You said you're on the health committee, Tom?
Could you ask?
We meet tomorrow, yeah, well,
If emergency services is gonna get some of that money to help offset our costs?
yeah, I will raise that question, and which raises the point, I think the most important thing for me to be here is what concerns does the township have that I can carry up with me, because, yeah, the county is, I mean, the county doesn't have authority to pass many new laws or ordinances, because we have to do whatever the state laws are. And then we also, one of our obligations is to do what township and city governments want. We can't be inconsistent with yours, so
Are
I
you
think it's
talking in
important.
general, or are you
I'm talking in
oh,
general. That's why I need to know what you folks are concerned about, and if you think you have adequate authority to deal with things. And so, yeah, I mean, that's one of my purposes coming here, is not for me to report to you things, but for you to get back to me, just like this issue right now, because I frankly hadn't looked at this strictly in terms of the enforcement, and so I will take that back with me. Yeah.
I mean, we have periodic issues, county issues that come up on a daily basis. I mean, you were at the county planning commission meeting with Mark and I thought I was kind of direct in some of my concerns when I spoke to the planning commission, that they need to pay attention to, when we give recommendations, to at least discuss them, not just ignore them and throw them in the trash can. I mean, I hope I was clear on that.
I think you were.
I was told by several people I was, but I mean, but it's a concern of ours, right? I mean, and I'll just be honest, planning and zoning and code enforcement are probably half of our concerns, you know, that we deal with.
Well, and that's the approach that I've taken from the beginning, because I agree, and I didn't think the county was being appropriate in the way they were dealing with a lot of
And I'll
stuff.
be honest with you, the comments that Pete gave at that meeting of some of the changes he wants to make and stuff gave me less faith in it than I did before I went to the meeting.
Well, the one that got me is when he said he was gonna go to the Adams, the big billboard guy,
Yeah, right.
outdoor advertising guy, and he was gonna have him tell him how to write the ordinance, or modify the ordinance. And I mean,
And that part wasn't even what bothered me the most.
Yeah.
It was just some of his other comments. There are reasons, there are certain things in that ordinance that go back a long time. And what he was saying is, if they're too hard to enforce, he wants to get rid of them because
he doesn't want to
it's
do
too
the
much
work.
work for him. But that's what he's paid to do.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're not going to do it, then find somebody who is. But I mean, don't change. What he's saying is we need to make the rules easier so I don't have to work as hard, is what he was saying. And that's not why we have zoning.
And the county attitude seems to be that we just want development, so we don't want to stand in people's way. And yet I got a call today about somebody who's ready to develop something and they can't get a
Exactly.
construction permit on it.
Right, I mean, he's talking about, well, we should relax these rules. Well, you know, I don't wanna get into it in depth, but like in the the A1 district, I mean, those are things, I mean, that's one of the reasons I ran for this office, is more on zoning issues 20 years ago type thing. But he's saying, well, we need to make those rules easier, and yet for us to get a piece of township-owned property rezoned that has been off the tax rolls for 20 years now, after we cleaned up a brown, I mean, we did it. Our DDA did everything they could possibly do. We cleaned up a brownfield, spent way more on it than they'll get back in. We had an offer to sell it going back to December, and it was contingent upon it rezoning, and it got pushed off at least 2 months because they couldn't get the stupid notice in the newspaper on the right day. I mean, this is not a
They
complicated
didn't count the
rezoning.
days correctly. Here we go.
3 times.
Yeah.
I mean, this wasn't a controversial rezoning, this was going from a commercial to an industrial designation in that district, and it was, so you're exactly right. He's talking about loosening the rules, we just need people to do the administrative tasks properly. I mean, that's my take on it.
But some of the people on the county level say, well, we couldn't afford to do this if we had our own people, so we hired out to him, but
And they're still not
maybe
doing
you're
it.
getting what you pay for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, and these problems went on before, but I mean, that was my frustration with that rezoning. I mean, that should have been on the January Planning Commission agenda, it should have been on the Board of Commissioners in February. And now here we're pushed out to the middle of April. And it was simply because we couldn't get the notice published in the paper. I mean, that was the reason.
And the future owner didn't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah, and
We volunteered to help.
Because he told us because he dealt with Pete in another county that Pete does with, and he told Mark and I, he said, if I have to deal with him on that, he said, I'm not doing it. Because he's had this problem in other counties, he said, so that's when we said we'd handle the rezoning, because he saw these exact problems coming, and so he has a reputation on it.
So he paid the deposit, now he's waiting.
Right, so now he's waiting,
he knows
we
it's
told him we would handle it, and
so-
he's glad we'd handle it, because,
Yep, yep. That way he has a project, he can fly to the south, fish, do
Well, I was
whatever.
pleased to see both of you at the meeting, the
Anything else?
planning meeting.
Anything else, Tom? Okay. Mark, library?
I forgot to bring the notes that
That's
she
okay.
made, so, but I do know that they raised the mileage rate because they were only paying the librarians that run books back and forth to the
Yeah.
branches and Jamie 25 cents a mile.
20.
So they've never raised it 10 years or more, so.
Did that.
So they brought it up to what, I think it's 63 and a half or something. And that was the big thing I think they did. They've been working hard at trying to get something taken care of down in Burns Township, Byron, with the library, because that's in the school right now, and then when school's not in session, the library can't be there.
That's not good.
You know, it's kind of
Okay, Mark, thanks. Troy, trade?
Meetings next week.
Okay. Mark, SEDP.
Okay, SEDP. We have been working on a succession plan in case something happened to Justin. We had nothing in place to who steps in or how we refill that position or any of the other positions in the staff. And we went over a lot of stuff, and there's some changes being made. We are the fiduciary for Shiawassee 3S Holdings LLC, which is a separate entity to put the options on the mega property in Durand. And there's right now, we're close to approaching the 600-acre threshold that has to be for a mega site. And that's pretty much that. The grant writer has been doing a lot of grant stuff. Now the land bank, we sold it's in the process of the contract and stuff. We sold the condo lots that we received from the state land bank, the 14 lots. We sold the Washington Park property. We have 14 or 15 parcels left, of which most of them are landlocked, and they're odd shapes. They might be 3 foot wide by 100 feet long or something like that. So we're in the process of contacting the bordering property owners to see if we can, all we want is enough to just cover whatever fees we've got involved with it. We do have 4 or 5 parcels in Lennon that were the old window factory that are zone residential that we're going to put out for bid process for sale. We have a new blight grant coming next week. It is a competitive grant. It is, the whole state it's going to be decided by the state land bank who gets what money. The whole state's going to be competing for this particular fund. But we have in late summer, early fall, we have another $500,000 grant coming that will come directly to us that we can use for those kind of things, for that house up on 52, for other things. Right now, the 200 that we got is being used for the old Simplicity building in Durand, for the downtown buildings in one house in Lennon, and we're supposed to do the one right on the corner of Oak and Main Street in Durand.
In Burn?
No, the one Lennon did.
In Burn.
Yeah. And that's just put off a little bit. It's guaranteed to go in this competitive ground. But that's been the big thing is learning. We're pretty naive going into this. Learning the different ins and outs of putting that property out. You know, those blight grants out, and also the sale properties. Now, we also are the Brownfield Authority, and we found out that we had to have those things in place also, like the Woodlands lots, they have to have a Brownfield plan, which doesn't necessarily, Brownfield plan doesn't necessarily mean just cleanup. There's a lot of other facets to that as far as tax capture and things like that. So there again, we're in a learning curve. So we're in the process of updating the rules and regulations and that and so forth, because there was one before, but the problem they had is they had nobody to do the footwork, where we have now, SEDP has a contract with the county that in exchange for office space, they're doing the footwork and stuff and things like this. So we've got people out there doing those things now, so.
Good. Okay. Our planning commission.
No meeting.
Okay. Troy,
I have
financial
right,
report.
you've got your bills list in front of you, you know, there was nothing really out of the ordinary on it. We did do an end-of-year transfer of 40,000 to the road fund, like we had discussed last month. Your budget to date number at the back, that's gonna be the final one for the year, so where everything ended in. And then we have a couple budget adjustments to do later in the agenda here, but is there any questions on the bills?
Motion to approve.
Okay, Mark made a motion to approve, roll call vote. Kelly?
Mark Foltz.
Yes.
Mark Frazier.
Yes.
Francis Griffith. Kelly Schmidt, yes. Trey Carmel.
Yes.
Okay. Any correspondence? Public comments? Okay. Unfinished business? Okay. New business. Okay, our board review, we actually had a four-day deal, okay. First one was 3 o'clock to 9, March 13th, and then the next one was 3 o'clock to 9, Tuesday, March 14th, and the third one was 9 a.m., March 15th, until 4:10. And then we had a closing session, just with the board review, 10 o'clock on March 23rd, where we completed everything. Off the numbers, there were 48 parcels in contest or dispute or question. We did 17 changes and adjustments, lot lines and different things like that. There were 9 VA exemptions approved, 9 VA exemptions or surviving spouse exemptions, and then there was 1 VA exemption that was denied. Because the homeowner didn't own the home.
Yeah, there's a new criteria for the veterans, disabled veterans exemption that says for the surviving spouse, that if the veteran's name was not on the deed before they passed away, when they pass away, the surviving spouse does not get the exemption.
Really?
That was a new thing that the State Tax Commission ruled on, and ironically, we had 2 of them, where it was just in the wife's name, not in the veteran's name, and so they didn't get it this year.
They're gonna have to pay their taxes. So anyway,
Yeah,
that.
I'm sure they'll be getting when they get the letter, I'm sure they won't be thrilled.
We'll be probably hearing
But
about
that's a state thing, that's nothing to do with us.
it. Yeah, and it went well. I mean, we had the usual people that came, but we also had some new people.
Oh, we had to have 2,
5%.
right, we had to have 2 extra days, I mean,
We sure
which
did. We sure
which hopefully we can avoid in the
And we
future.
had no poverty. I think that's the first year since I've been here.
No, we didn't have one, I suspect they just forgot.
Could be. So that was that. Any questions? Okay,
No, it's the busiest board review we've ever had.
it sure was. Road projects. Troy,
Okay, so you have in your boxes, remember we approved everything beforehand except the crack filling, but we were waiting because they had to bid that. And so those came back, and they came back like the day after our March meeting. So the sheet you have in there is those numbers. Those came in very close. So we approved. Those numbers are good within the road budget we approved, but we need to officially approve those. So that's the 5 of them. It's the Morris Road, Church Road, Ellsworth Road, Rupert Road, and Brain Road. Those are the roads that hopefully the road commission is going to be paving next year. When Chris was in, Mark and I did talk to him, and remember before it was looking like our part of Morris Road may be 2025, not 2024, but now they are going to get further this year than they originally thought. So it is possible this could be on next year's. It's going to depend on what asphalt comes in the fall, in their budget. So, but it's back into the maybe category.
Sounds good.
For
And we
24.
mentioned last night again too, so.
So I'll make a motion that we approve the 5 crack filling bids
Okay.
from the road commission.
Troy's made a motion,
Second.
seconded by Butch. Roll call vote, Kelly.
Mark Frazier.
Yes.
Francis Griffith.
Yes.
Kelly Schmidt, yes. Trey Carmel.
Yes.
Mark
Yes.
Foltz.
Yes. Troy, budget adjustments for the.
All right, you've got 4 budget adjustments to make for the end of the fiscal year. First one in the general fund was for the board review, since we had twice as many sessions as we normally have. we went over budget a little bit there, so that's just an adjustment taken out of contingency of $250. The next two affect the special assessment fund and the DDA fund, but they're for the same thing. These are for the Lansing Road lights. For whatever reason, this past year, consumers put an extra surcharge on the LED lights. I don't know why, because they ended up costing as much as the high-pressure sodiums after we were pushed to go to LED because they're more efficient. Explain that. But anyway, so the special assessment fund is the pass-through for that, because that's where the bill gets paid out of, so that adjustment is to increase the income item and the expense line item for Lansing Road lights, because again, it just passes through there. Then the DEA adjustment is to increase the Lansing Road lights line item, and I adjusted back out of the Rose lights, because they didn't spend anywhere near as much.
Oh, okay.
The fourth adjustment is what we have to look at every year as an unrealized gain or loss on investments. Since we have treasury bonds for our perpetual care money, at the end of the fiscal year, we have to recognize if they have lost value at all during the year. Mind you, we aren't taking any loss because we aren't selling them. They're coupon bonds that we get interest payments from, and we will get all of our original principal back when they mature. But if we had to sell them today, there would be a loss on them, and that's because they had gone up so much in value the last few years because they're 5.25% interest bonds, which when interest rates were 0.5% were pretty valuable, and now as they've gone up, they're not as valuable. They're still worth more than par. But, so we just have to adjust that every year. Now that is the hazard is if you have to sell them, you have to take that loss, which some Silicon Valley Bank, but fortunately we don't need to sell them, so.
And I don't know that $5,000.
Right, but that's our budget amendments.
Do we do them all as one
Yep.
motion? Okay, I make a motion we do the 4 budget adjustments as laid out here.
Second.
Okay,
You made the motion, and Butch, you seconded?
Uh-huh.
Okay. All right.
Francis-
Roll call vote.
Francis Griffith,
Yes.
Kelly Schmidt, yes, Ray Carmely.
Yes.
Mark Vogt,
Yes.
Mark Frazier.
Yes.
Okay, in our audience, we have our leader, Guy.
Well, I've never had it put that way before. I'll take fire chief. Or
Fire
emergency
chief is
services chief, that sounds.
Fire
sounds
leader,
better.
how's that, leader of the pack?
Yeah. Well, I'm here tonight to talk about the potential or the request for a household assessment increase for ambulance service only. As you know, we collect millage for fire, and we just renewed that this last summer, spring, whatever it was. So the next time you collect money, it'd be 1.25 mils, just like it was. It was just a renewal. But anyway, so for ambulance, we collect per household. We collected $45 per household for 20 years. When we took over from PMSA, which a couple of you were here and remember well, Mark, you were involved in that pretty well, even though you weren't on the board, but
Yeah.
in Troy, it was pretty tough
It was.
getting that going, but it's going, and it's gone well. There was a lot of bad meetings, but anyway.
A lot of long meetings.
A lot of long meetings. And then they called it the Southwest Shiawassee Emergency Services Alliance because I missed a meeting. But anyway, I missed, every meeting for 2 years, I missed one and they named it. I don't know, maybe they thought I wouldn't have liked that, but we had the same attorney as NISA. So that's why, because that's.
They're the Northeast Hingham Emergency Services Authority,
Right, so, and Southwest Shiawassee doesn't make any sense because we don't cover the southwest corner, we cover the southeast. But anyway, getting past that, so we went from 45 to 65 here a couple of years ago, 3 years ago I think it might have been, it was probably 2020. And we did that in hopes that would be enough for at least a while. Well, COVID of course was right after that, and that caused some troubles. I hate to blame everything on COVID, and I hate to blame everything on anything in particular, but there were a lot of other things that played into the increases that we've seen. And then this is a slideshow. Everyone's got a packet there that shows it. You know, we cover 11 municipalities, about 200 square miles, which is a large area for 3 ambulances. Our full-time people recently went union with the International Association of Firefighters, their local 5360. I don't want to get that number wrong. I have trouble remembering that number, but anyway, that's some of the updates that have happened with us. And the next one you have on page 2, number 2, is our mission and the vision statement. Our mission statement, of course, is committed to providing the highest level of customer service to our community through safe and rapid response to all fire, EMS, and hazardous incidents, save lives, property, and preserve the environment. Then a vision in order to accomplish that, promote safety and maintaining a well-equipped, highly trained and motivated team of professional firefighters and EMS personnel while providing fire prevention, public fire education programs. And we want to do that and meet all these strides. All that stuff's getting more expensive. Now, if you look at slide number 3, 24/7, 365 BLS, ALS ambulance cert, we do have. We have 3 of them now, and we have 1 MFR vehicle in the Village of Morris. Engine 2 is licensed medical first responder, which just means basic first aid. They can respond. They'll be dispatched along with a ambulance service if it's coming from out of town. And a serious incident that happens within our district, even outside of the village, obviously. We have 4 stations, the one in Perry, the one in Morris, of course, just fire, except for that 1 MFR vehicle. And then we have a station in Durand, and then one in Vernon Township. They're literally a half mile away from each other. One just happens to be barely into the city, and the other, well, one barely into the township outside the city limits. But that was something that the old DVA building in downtown Durand, that goes back a long, long time. But that's where we're occupied right now. It's not perfect, but it is, it's okay. They don't charge us rent. We do share utilities with the school because the school has the back half of the building. So it's more economical than trying to get someplace else and paying a higher amount for rent.
Who owns the Vernon Township station?
Can't think of his name. The guy that owns Beechcraft.
Oh, we just lease that.
Yeah, we pay $800 a month.
He actually remodeled that whole thing pretty extensively for us to go in there.
Yeah, well, it's a pole barn.
Yeah.
And he put walls up in the corner, and there you go. There's 2 beds. It's nice. It is nicer than you drive in there. You think, God, these poor guys have to work in here. You walk in, you're like, oh, this is better than my house. They have a nice kitchen, full kitchen, a nice living area, 2 full bedrooms. Then there's 1 garage there. There's 1 bay for the ambulance to go in and out, so it's parked inside over here. I'll probably think of his name halfway through this, and then I'll tell you.
Where is the Vernon base?
Well, you know where the bowling alley used to be in Durand? Oh, the Vernon base.
Vernon.
Yeah.
Well, you
Yes,
know what,
yes.
I don't know where either of them are.
Okay, well, the old DVA building is Ed Standard, the gas station downtown. And then next to that used to be a bank, but there's nothing there now. The building's still there. And then next to that is our building. Right across from PFCU, the new bank. Basically right across from that. The Vernon Township station is, there was a bowling alley there, now it's some kind of a center or whatever. And then Beechcraft. And our driveway is between the 2 to get behind Beechcraft to get to that.
So it's behind.
Yeah, it's you can't see it from. I mean, if you look down that road, you can see it as you're going past, but it's not something you can
But
see.
you wouldn't know that's what it was when the doors.
No, you wouldn't know when you drive through there. You'd be sure you're in the wrong spot, but until you get back there.
So, City of Vernon ended up with the DVA building when DVA went under?
Yes. In fact, I don't know that
Or they somehow acquired it?
yeah, maybe they always did. I have no idea, but the school uses the back half now. DVA had it. They used the entire building, which is nice. I mean, it's a good sized building. They had a nice living area, bedrooms, offices. It was all nice. Well, now we had to kind of. MMR was there before we were, and they had you built this little room for the living room for them to sit, and then 2 bedrooms. There was always a kitchen right there and a bathroom, but it's not the great. And then you walk out of the bedroom, and there's the ambulance. So there's no separation. So, but anyway, it's what we've got. And then if you look, well, it kind of talks about the what I talked about earlier on page 3, slide number 4. It just talks about what we had at $45 for 15 years until 2020. And then you can see the number of how much it's actually costing per day. And then you can see that the green line is expenses, the red line is revenue projected if we leave it there. And you see that those numbers start to separate where our expenses go way above our projected revenue at $65. Then slide number 5 talks about some of the increases that we've had. What I did was I just picked out particular things that were a large increase. I wasn't picking on any one or one line item. But our wages, we see that that's going to go up again. Of course, it will every year. But then I made some examples too, like the ambulance. We bought a new ambulance in 2019 for $156,000. I got a bid for a 2023 last year, at $257,000. So it's just insane that the increase. Part of that was that there's another $30,000 addition to the ambulance now that you have to have that you didn't have to have in 19, and that would be the power load system. But the cots, we bought one in 17, bought one in 23. Heart monitors, gone crazy. They've gone up quite a bit, and then fuel, everybody knows that. I'm preaching to the choir here as far as, and anybody I talk to, I'm preaching to the choir. You go get groceries, and you know how much more it is. I have a lot of people living in my house, and it used to be about $300 every other week, and now it's over $400 every other week just for groceries. It's crazy. But anyway, and then slide number 6 on page 4, you'll look with the income versus projection for 24. The income at 1.6 and the expenses at 1.9. That's basically just a different chart of what you already looked at with the line. That's if we stay there at 65. So going to $110 per unit. Now the Assessa board had quite a discussion about this back and forth. I think it went as high as 130 and as low as 100, and the compromise was 110 is and again it was a compromise. People wanted it higher, people wanted it lower.
No, there were several that wanted to go more.
Yeah. So it was agreed upon there. Now that's of course with the as an assessment, you can increase that assessment every year if you'd like, up to 10%. So I think what we're looking at is in order to not stay stagnant at 110 for a long, long time until we get in trouble again, is to maybe raise that a certain percentage every year. I don't know that we'll ever need 10%, but it would be something that would be decided that year. 1 year it might be 3%, 1 year it might be 8%, or whatever the case is, I'm not sure. It'll have to be decided at budget time to what we expect our increases to be. You can talk about how much it was. Now, for example, my trash pickup, I live in the city of Perry. My trash pickup went from $8.50 a month to now it's $12.40 a month. Which comes up on, a couple $100 a year. So, 110 to, I guess comparing the two. I'd hate to see a big pile of trash in my garage. We're glad to get rid of it. However, they went with a different company. For whatever reason, it doesn't make any difference, but I know that their fuel is through the roof, and I'm sure their wages have gone up a bunch and a lot of expenses. One of the things that we've seen that has happened is since COVID, a lot of people didn't have to work anymore, and they were getting supported by governmental money. Well, those people, or a lot of them, depending on the generation, just don't want to go back to work, so they're not. And so the manpower shortages are crazy for every industry, especially ours. I'll say especially ours because that's the only one I represent. But I can imagine in the garbage industry, they can't get drivers, so they have to pay the drivers they have more money to keep them. And that's kind of the situation we're in. We have to be able to maintain that. A lot of people are getting straight out of emergency services business. They're just not doing it anymore. That's why there's shortages of nurses and but anyway.
Where would you say we fit in on the wage benefit spectrum in our general area?
Our general area, we're doing, I would say that we're doing very well, honestly. A starting paramedic right now makes about $58,000 a year. Not great money, but that's the first day on the job. plus they're getting the MERS, and our MERS plan is premium. It's, you work for 20 years and you can retire. They pay 5%, we pay, right now, it's like, it changes every year. I think we pay 11.5% ballpark, somewhere in there. Assessment pays that.
So the employees pay roughly a third of the premium?
They pay 5%, no matter what.
But if
Yeah.
if you're taking an 11,
Yes.
that's roughly a third.
Yes,
but it
right,
varies.
right. It was over, it was right around 15% last year and it went down. Now, it fluctuates up and down based on two things. Sometimes it's the market, and other times it's the number of employees and their wages that you have. Now, the wages, obviously, the higher the wages, you pay more because of the percentage, but the more employees you have signed into the plan, and the further away they are from retirement, it goes down. So if we were to hire somebody that's 50, is a great example, then our premium would probably go up, our percentage, because they only have to be vested, they can be vested after 6 years, and it's 20 out or 60 years old. So if we hire somebody that's 50, they can work for us for 10 years and they'd start drawing MERS.
Particularly if they've been with an
It wouldn't be
agency
very
that already
much.
had MERS.
Yeah, it wouldn't be very much that they draw from our account, just because they only work 10 years. So all that's a calculation, where 2.5% multiplier, I don't know, Mark's drawing MERS, I'm sure now, and I'm not sure that they may not have had as good a plan as we had. You know, and I hate to say, call it up, when we first started with MERS, I think we started it in 2006 sometime. And then the board agreed to go back to January 2005 for the employees that were there at the time, and that would be me, Bill Jackson, and another guy that's already retired. But so my 20 years will be up in January of 25, and then we've got a couple others that are close. That doesn't mean it's where you have to retire. You can continue to work on, obviously, and the longer you work, the more money that you get at your retirement. But it's guaranteed benefit. It's defined benefit, not defined contribution. And I think that, yeah, they had defined benefit too, didn't they? So basically, long before you retire, you know exactly what you're gonna get at retirement, no matter what. It's based on your best 5 years, your best 5 consecutive years of employment.
So that, starting paramedic at 58,000 a year, how does that compare to if we leave our county and go close by like Meridian Township or East Lansing, because obviously they're close competition for us.
Yes, and we can't compete with them. We never will be able to. There are companies.
Well, we have benefits to
Yeah.
being here and not there, but
Yeah,
do you have any idea what their range they're in?
It depends on the municipality. They're getting desperate, more and more desperate, and they're offering like, if you work 10 years for us, they'll hire you with 10-year seniority in that pay range. So someone over in a different municipality, and I won't name one, they'll give you 10-year seniority with that wage, and they'll start at $70,000, $80,000 a year. So we can't compete with the East Lansing, we can't compete with any of them. And it's because of they're busier, so they don't have as much downtime. That's another thing that attracts people to us, is they have time to relax between calls.
Yeah, no, we're not call to call to call to call.
Right, exactly. But they have a higher taxable value, so they get more money brought in than we do. I know our MERS is a big attractor for employees. And then, of course, we have the time off and vacation, sick, all that stuff, just like pretty much everybody does. And we compete pretty well with that. In fact, we're doing pretty well with that as far as other departments that offer the same thing. So we are right in line with Owasso City, very, very close in wages. And we are very close, if not maybe a little bit better than NISA in Williamston. We're very comparable to NISA as far as
Coverage area, everything.
as far as call volume, everything. Except NISA's taxable value with Williamstown Township.
Yeah, no, NISA has more value.
Yes.
But as far as the territory covered is similar.
Yes.
Other than Williamston and Williamstown Township, it's pretty rural.
Yes, it
you
is.
know.
Yep.
And,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, there's a lot of money there.
Yep. There's a lot of money there. So anyway, that's when you ask the question about where we're at wages wise, I think we're doing pretty well now. It's easy for me to say that, but I think that's it's definitely more attractive than what it was. Our employees that started when the union was signed, we wanted to offer more money. We wanted to offer the wages that we want to keep them. So some of the employees, they got like a 30% pay increase from pre-union, and that was in an attempt to show them their value and try to keep them with us as far long as we could. And like I said, other municipalities are throwing all kinds of money at them, signing bonuses.
Yeah, no, I heard somebody say the other day, some suburb down by Detroit was, paramedic firefighter, 80,000 a year.
Yes, that's out there.
I mean,
Yeah. Yep. And we can't compete with that. We can't do that. There's never, if they have to make $80,000 a year, they're gonna have to go somewhere else, because I don't see us ever being to that point. I really don't. I would like to see it, maybe in 40 years, 80,000 won't mean anything.
yeah, right.
We won't be there
When
anytime.
inflation takes it, there it is, but
Yes.
yeah, no, I mean, that's, but I mean, our problem is we're not horribly far from those places either.
Right.
I mean, you live
Yeah.
here and wanna work for Meridian Township or East Lansing, that's not a bad drive.
And you work,
Not a bad drive to Howell, it's not a bad drive to any of those.
and you work a 24-hour shift, and you only work 10 days a month.
Yeah.
So you only make that drive 10 days a month.
Yeah.
So it's not, it's,
So what are the retirement plans for these other outer line communities?
they're all different. They really are.
Are they all like defined benefit, or are they 401k?
I think NISA has, I'm not sure positive about this, but I think they have a hybrid MERS, which means not defined benefit, defined contribution. And then they also have another plan, like a 457 or something like that they contribute to. That would be something that we'd have to negotiate in the next contract for future hire, if that were to come up. Not for current, but for future.
So has anybody kind of looked into to see how much you could save by doing that? As far as combined, defined benefit compared to those?
That's something we'll have to start looking into. We can't change anything until the contract is, the contract is good through, I think May of 24, 25.
25 is.
Yeah, I think it's 25. So we got lots of time to do that. That's something we'll have to, negotiation is what it is. That's what it's for.
Well, we were having a discussion about it earlier today. I mean, the county has made, substantial changes to that. And of course, the county's problem, you guys are at least funded.
Yes.
Where the county didn't fund it, and now they're just in a mess. I mean, and that mess can happen, that mess can happen quickly, right?
Yeah.
But they're in the quandary now. They don't have that high-end pension plan, but yet they struggle, they can't offer the wages, and so now they're just in a no man's land, right?
Right, exactly.
It's something like this going forward, if they really get the wage pressures, especially from places like MMR or those other ones, right, is a more of a hybrid system to attract some of those people that, there's people that can look at it and say, okay, well, this is a retirement plan that's worth $10 an hour, which it probably is,
Yeah, depending on how long you live.
depending on how long you live. But that's hard to explain to a 23-year-old too.
Exactly.
Who's saying,
You can't make rent.
right, you can't make rent, but it's also that it's their immediate money, but it's also, nobody after 20s thinks they're gonna be old, but when they're 50, they're all of a sudden, holy crap, I worked all those years and I got nothing,
Yeah, because I didn't save any money.
I didn't save any money, right?
Right.
And so,
Yeah,
that trade-off, right? Because
Yeah.
with wages versus that.
Yeah, and we have, we signed, I can't remember the name of the act, but, which allows for any municipal retirement plan to merge with our MERS, and you can add the years together. Now, we are only responsible for the years they work for us. We don't pay the whole thing, so if you might get 3 checks a month, one from the state, one from other departments, and then one from us, which is gonna be different money, again, of course, but, because you have to be vested with us, but, so, anyway, it's a good plan. Lots of things I wish we could do differently, but unfortunately we can't. There's a lot of A lot of unseen expenses that we have. But anyway, going from our 65 to 110, that's a lot of money. That's a big increase. It really is. I can't say that I'm not against it at all because it's necessary. I was hoping that we could avoid something like this, but there's no way around it. It has to happen. So we are going to all the municipalities that we cover and but we're presenting the same program and request that you do whatever it is you have to do to collect that money. Most do the assessment just like the township does. Not all, but they do. I went to the City of Durant meeting on Monday night and Troy was able to meet me there because I knew they'd ask me something I didn't know about assessments. And frankly, they did say something about it that I didn't know, and he corrected me. But
I
anyway.
had a productive discussion with their attorney even.
Yeah.
I think it went well.
Yes, I think the city of Durant was one of my concerns, but I think it went well. I really do. It was well received. Didn't get beat up at all, which I fully expected.
No, I was prepared for them to start yelling at you or me or both of us, and
Yeah.
no, it was very pleasant.
I tried in with another one of the leaders in the conference room.
Yeah.
With the door open. I mean, it was a very casual,
But I mean,
courteous meeting.
in that audience in Durant, there was a couple of people, you had mentioned the Staddy and mess that went bankrupt in Genesee County.
Yeah,
I mean, there was a couple of people there very familiar with it, and they were very much
yeah,
not wanting to go back down that road.
right. Yeah, and the only reason I brought that up was because of MMR. I don't know if the city will put it out to bids. Our contract with them is up in August of this year. I don't know what they'll do. I kind of, because a private company will come in there and promise them the world and then not provide it. They'll do it for 6 months and not do it. So anyway, that's what, and I'll say that, I already did, I'll say it publicly again, that companies like that tend to get the business and then not provide it.
We don't have to call them, but
Well, and
Yeah.
the caveat to that is that when they don't provide it because they pulled the rig to go to Genesee County or whatever, which is what happened in Durant before, then we're forced to take those calls on a mutual aid basis for the run dollars, if it's collectible, and we don't get any household assessment to help pay the base cost. So that becomes much more expensive to us, which was a similar problem we had with LSW for a while.
Well, one of the questions was asked at City of Durant is, well, you collect the calls, and why this? And it's
can we
basically,
explain to them it's half and half, Russell?
it's basically 50-50 for our expenses. Our income is basically 50% from household assessment and 50% for ambulance calls. So it's always been that way ever since day one. So anyway, on slide number 7, you'll see there that just gives that same graph again, but with the proposed revenue projections, the blue line. You can see that we're up above the expenses, and it consistently stays that way all the way through 2027. And that is, again, everything's projected because I have no idea what things are going to cost next year. No one does. We can guess, but we can't say for sure. So it may be that an increase is necessary percentage-wise based on your assessment, but we don't know that for sure now.
We got some serious capital outlays that are gonna have to, we gotta replace some ambulances.
Yeah.
I mean, that's gonna be the,
Yeah,
that's gonna be the trick.
I just got back from Minneapolis today. That flew there, drove an ambulance back. We paid $78,000 for it. It had like $30,000 worth of equipment in it, so that was a pretty good deal. Unfortunately, we had to buy a used ambulance, and unfortunately, with that, we had to borrow the money to do it, which I hate. But it is, we have to do it. We had to do it because we have 4 ambulances now, 3 stations. One's a 2013, and it's got well over 200,000 miles on it. Put a lot of money into that over the last few years. We have 2 16s and then 1 19. So, and the 2013, driving it down, I always have this saying, you drive it till the wheels fall off. You know, that's why I tell my, you know, hey, just keep driving until the wheels fell off. Well, A7, which is the 2013 going down I-69 coming back from McCall, the rear wheels fell off. Literally, off the truck. So, 3 o'clock in the morning call that was, but, so anyway, we got that fixed, and, it's all back on the road now, good to go, but,
This gives us a second back.
yes. And then the next, well, it was probably a week later, maybe 2 weeks later, the ambulance, another ambulance, different one, hit a deer. So that ambulance is right now, will be at the body shop. And so now we're down to 3 again. So we have 3 ambulances on the road and 3 ambulances. If we have a mechanical issue or hit another deer with another ambulance, then we're in bigger trouble. So I've always liked to have at least one backup for every station. But I think 5 is probably enough for the 3 trucks on the road. That way we can take them in for, we do take them in for regular maintenance. When using the backup one, we need to have at least, at the very, very least one, so that you go in for a oil change or whatever the case is, or brake job, then you've got another ambulance back to take care of the area. But because they're getting older, and I would suspect, I would like to have, we would have purchased a new ambulance in '22. We would have bought an ambulance then, because that's when we were due. Couldn't do it in '22, and
It's
here we
not,
are
it's
now.
not gonna happen this year.
It's not gonna happen this year. Nope, we're gonna barely make, well, we're gonna make the payments that we have.
We're gonna be very tight this year.
Very, very tight. Yep. Troy has seen the numbers and, they are-
Yeah, no, Troy was really not pleased to make this big of a jump, and I think we're gonna have a hard sell when we have to do this to everybody, but I mean, we're in the situation, I'm not sure we have a lot of options.
Right, yep. So anyway, you can do the math, how much that costs you a day. And then cost savings on page 5, slide number 8. We have gotten some grants, a couple of grants for equipment. And then we did, for group purchasing, we got in with the Lansing area, group purchasing, so all the Lansing fire departments we talked about a few minutes ago, we're getting their pricing now, which is a little bit better because they buy so much as a group. So we don't have to buy a whole bunch of anything, we don't have to buy it when they buy it, we just buy our regular supplies and then they price it based on what they charge them. So that saved us some money. And then used equipment's on there, which is the ambulance that we just bought. And then other local agencies, that's pretty much the same as the group purchasing. One thing that the collection of outstanding invoices. We bill the insurance company, and then the insurance company pays us a certain amount of money depending on whether it's ALS, BLS, and how many miles you went to the hospital. And then there's the copay and deductible that the patient's still responsible for. So we send that bill to the patient. If the patient's unable to pay that, then they let us know and it ends up getting written off, just written off. If it's a customer or a resident, I like to call them. So all those 11 municipalities, they're all residents. If it's not a resident, like they're driving through town or whatever the case is, and they get in an accident, well, accident's a little tougher because a car accident, they pay 100% of what we bill, but just say somebody, whatever reason they have to go to the
Mutual
hospital.
aid call.
Yeah, exactly, like in City Grand or Lanesburg. We send them to collections if they don't pay. So, a couple of the things we're doing is we're going to, at the last bill we sent to the patient, we're gonna offer them a choice, hey, pay half of this right now and it's done, it's over. So hopefully that'll generate some more revenue for us. You know, and it's not that much. It adds up to a lot of money at the end of the year, the amount of money we write off. But that's the way CESA started. We did it from day one, that we weren't going to send our residents to collections. And I would, you know, it's not up to me, I'm just the manager, but I would have a very difficult time doing that.
A lot of them we would never get anything out.
Yeah, right.
And the collections agency takes what, a third?
Half.
Half.
Yeah.
So when you bill, do you bill just for like an ambulance run, a CPT code for just an ambulance run? Or do you bill for the services that you provide while you have that person there?
No, it is itemized. It's, There's ALS, advanced life support, and there's basic life support. And there's a couple other categories that are specialized. And then there's loaded mile, all the patients in the ambulance. And depending on the insurance company, they're all different, and there's probably 20 or 30 of them that we bill, that people have. You know, there's a lot of more than one, there's more than one Blue Cross plan. We could send them a bill for $850 for the ALS transport. And it's already set up that if we want to be a member with Blue Cross where they pay us, then we agree that we're going to take this much. So we send them a bill for a patient ride, $850. They say, okay, well, it's worth $350. Here's your $350. We have to accept that. Now that $500 that's left over gets written off completely, and then the whatever's left copay deductible goes to the patient.
So it is itemized, it's not individual CPT billing that you guys do? Like what doctors' offices would do. They have certain CPT codes, and most generally, they will take the very highest CPT code to get paid and put it first, and then start coming down the list.
Yeah, we just have one bill depending on whether it was advanced care or basic care. Yep, that's all. And there's an ALS 1, which means special transport, whatever that is, and those are higher dollar amounts. But
So question, like, let's say one of the municipalities decides not to do it, you know, and well, let's say the Durant situation happens again, where we're effectively covering it on mutual aid. Can we charge more to them if they're not a participating member?
no. No, law says we have to charge everybody the same.
Is there any legislation that is fighting that?
Not that I'm aware of. No,
So
everybody.
we can't charge a non-resident more.
A service
No.
fee?
We can't. Nope. That's illegal. And it has been as long as I know. Yep. The only thing we do is get more aggressive with what they owe, like collections.
Sure.
But, you know, we want to
But that won't make enough of it up.
No, not even close. Not even close. So that, yeah, answer that. And then mutual aid. We went into the city grant before we took over but the household unit charges, and we get what the insurance company pays. And then if the patient didn't pay, we send them to collections because they weren't one of our residents. So, you know, I don't recall even I have no clue how much they paid or how much we collected, how much we didn't collect based on that. But then we just got, when we signed the contract with them, we were able to get their millage.
So, why, I guess I don't understand why we got two ambulances so close together. Why couldn't we take that Durand one and just have Vernon cover it and have an agreement with Durand?
Durand insisted on having the ambulance in Durand. That's one reason. The other reason is that area is pretty busy. So to have one ambulance run all of them, we have quite often, and I don't know why it happens, but it does, where there's two calls in Durand, or in the Durand area. You know, maybe both in Vernon Township, maybe one in the city, one in the township, whatever. It seems like they go out on one call, and then 5 minutes later, there's another one. Well, the second one, the Perry truck would come and take. That seems to happen a lot. There are a lot of calls over there, so they split them up back and forth. So,
Is it economic?
is it economical? No. I would love to have one base over there. And I think that, well, I don't know. I'd love to have one base over there, but to find some place that would accommodate 4 people, 2 ambulances inside, it would be difficult to find. We'd have to basically probably rent a house that has a really decent garage.
But if we had 2 full-staffed rigs, that wouldn't save anything.
No,
Right.
except for the utilities and rent, things like that. Yeah, that's all it would save.
I mean, I think question, could we get away with 1 rig serving the Durand area and 1 rig serving the Perry area?
We could get away, we could do it, but it would be, and we had the same issue with, we did have just 1 truck over there before we took over the city of Durand, and then 1 here. The Perry truck was going over there a lot. I mean, a lot. So that leaves nothing here, of course. And then And, you know, quite often they're one in the city of Durant, mutual aid. But, so to have 2 trucks in that area, it makes sense.
So Vernon couldn't handle both areas
Both areas, as in the city of Durant
and Vernon.
Well,
used
they
to.
also handle Byron, Burns Township,
Could they handle that area?
Shiawassee Township, they come
One
this
rig together,
direction,
that whole
this
area.
way out.
They used to. Yeah, they used to.
So it's possible,
They used to.
but it would be tight.
Well, the problem is the ambulance would be gone a lot, and then both of them would be gone a lot, because, you know, a couple thousand runs a year, and, you know, a lot of them are over that way. That concerns me in the driving back and forth and not having anyone here, so.
So Guy,
I mean, I think where we're going is we want to make sure, while we're all you know, we obviously have to make sure this works and we're all covered and stuff, but we also have to make sure we're not excessively subsidizing the other areas.
Exactly, I agree.
I mean, because at the end of the day, the taxpayers of Perry Township put a big chunk of the bill for all of this, you know, this originally.
Right,
You know, and I think most people would agree we need to be able to help our neighbors and all that, but we can't excessively subsidize it
Right.
either.
and when we get, hopefully the city of Durant does it per unit. Troy, I know, talked to the city manager and the attorney quite a bit about that. Because right now, we charge them 1.5 mils. Because they put on the ballot for ambulance and fire 1.65 mils. And then we went in there and bid 1.5 mils to get the service. And it was supposed to be 12 hours a day. Because I did the math, I figured roughly $65 per household, which apparently was a lot closer than I thought it was, at 1.5 mils. But that was only supposed to be 12 hours a day, rather than 24. Well, the board wanted to do 24, so we did. Understanding that, you know, we weren't collecting the money for that. So here we are. But now, at 110, if we get them to go per unit, I think it'll generate more money, just because there's more units there than what we know about. Because, you know, an apartment building, every apartment in that building gets assessed, the 1 unit charge. And, you know, I think they're going by
Durant
meters.
has a ton of
Yes.
apartments in Durant.
They do. They have a lot of apartment complexes in Durant.
I know,
You what
there's
now?
quite a few units
And where?
in Durant. city
Oh, yes,
Durant.
there are, yes. And, you know, we go to all of them all the time. It's not like, you know, somebody's house where we go to once every year or once every couple
Oh,
of years.
absolutely. I mean, you know, when we've had this debate, when I've explained to people why we do it the way we do, because typically these, let's call them high-density residential areas are the higher call volume.
Yes,
I mean, it's the trailer parks, it's the apartment complexes, it's the
Forest
campgrounds, well, it's not even the forest greens, it's, you know, the Bradbury Park apartments and there, I mean, it's,
lots of people
those
in this
units
area.
are the ones that if you're doing on a millage basis, pay less,
right.
but they are worthy, they're worthy expenses, that's where the demand is.
There's a lot of efficiency in apartments
Right.
in that area.
Well,
Which means they're probably
and-
subsidized by the government.
And police would tell you the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where the calls are. Their calls aren't in the Rayland Hills, their calls are,
Right.
you know, in those other places.
Well, and a household assessment is more equitable to
Absolutely.
everybody than using a millage, because a higher value property or property with the house, you pay a whole bunch more under a millage system.
And that's why I've thrown this out, and there's of course a zillion exceptions to it, but fire departments protect property, ambulances protect people. Again, there's a zillion exceptions to that, so you can't hold it to it, but I mean, that makes sense. If you have a very high value home, you should pay more for fire coverage because it's worth more for that.
Yeah.
Where a house with 2 people living in it and a mansion with 2 people living on it have the same exposure to an ambulance.
Yes, yep.
So are you locked into charging $110 for everybody, or could you negotiate $200 for a city of Durant? Because they want the ambulance there.
That is a loaded question. I think the answer, the short answer to that is no. I think that what we're looking for is everyone to sign on board so that everyone's paying their fair share. Now, the truck that is in the city of Durant, it covers more than just the city. They don't cover just the city. They go out throughout to Byron, all the way.
They
down.
alternate calls, right?
They alternate calls between the two, yes. So, however they do it, it doesn't matter to me, but they do alternate the calls back and forth. Now, if we were to have the city, the one that sits in the city take just city calls, they wouldn't do a whole lot. And then the other one would be running like crazy, so we alternate back and forth.
I think where Kelly's going is, by doing this, 110, I mean, we're saying that this should cover us for 3 24/7,
Yeah.
rigs at the station. Ultimately, probably, if we push the pencil to it, our area is subsidizing that area a little bit.
Well,
Not a lot, but probably some.
Well, if you
Probably
look at
some,
the
but
call
there's-
volume, Perry Township, Perry City, the village, not
Bennington
even
and-
considering Antrim and stuff, is about half the amount of calls as City of Durand and Vernon Township.
We're about, I think the stuff I
And so
push
you're
towards
running
about
two rigs,
40% of
rigs over there and you're running one rig here.
Right.
So in essence, pretty much the areas are paying for themselves.
How about the units? Are they equal?
The
They're
the
not-
unit amounts, no, we don't have the apartments that they do in Durand.
Right, so their units would be a lot higher than what?
they're
our-
paying more per unit, yes. Or I'm not per unit, but
More
overall.
units.
Overall.
Now, I understand, Dan and I talked one day about it, and he felt that the run revenue per call was better in Durand.
Less
You know.
write-offs is what he. is
Well,
what-
just, I don't know, they're more profitable calls or what. I mean, he and Bill had to look, you have to really dig through some numbers, right, to figure that out. And just that in call revenue, it was generating well.
Well, they're at the Durand Senior Citizens Complex, they're there almost every day.
They're quite a bit.
I think it's
And
24
where
units.
we don't hardly ever go to the one in town here.
Yeah, we have fair share calls there, but
But not as often as,
No,
if you watch
not-
the calls,
it's a much bigger facility,
yeah.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
so Guy, who all have you talked to? City of Perry,
City Perry,
Perry Township,
yeah,
Village of Morris?
yes,
Okay,
um,
Perry, of course. Vernon Township?
City of Durand.
Antrim, City Durand.
Antrim, okay.
We still have to get Shiawassee Township, Bennington Township, and Vernon Township.
Okay.
Because Bennington and City Durand and Burns are all the same night. Vernon Township is next Monday, and then Shiawassee, I think theirs is the second Thursday or something like that, their meeting is.
So you haven't been to Burns yet? Or you have?
Yes, Burns. I went to City Durand and Tim went to Burns.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Burns, I'm sorry, I missed that one. Yep.
Did he report how things went?
He thought it went pretty well. And I think both of us, we both went to the Village of Morris, and then from there we've had to split up. Because, we, two meetings at the same night, or whatever the case was, or one was out of town, but, I felt that everyone I went to went pretty well, and he said the same of the ones that he's been to. So, I don't, Vernon Township, I'll go there Monday and present to them, and I don't know that there'll be any issues there, but it's possible.
They've actually been a community that's been pushing, they keep asking us if we sure we're doing it, getting enough.
Yeah, and the other thing, another point to make is that Lanesburg Ambulance, they're charging like $180 per unit right now for Woodall Township, Scioto Township, and that's it.
City Lynchburg.
The city of Lynchburg, yes. So they're
Quite a bit.
they're getting a lot more money
And
for a
Twin Townships
lot
is
less calls.
How often do you go that way?
They're not very often anymore, because when they raised that, they were able to raise their wages.
I say we were going there a lot.
We were going there a lot because they didn't have an ambulance.
Right.
But they got to $180 some per household, and with that, they were able to raise their wages and attract more employees. And, I mean, if we go there 2, maybe 3 times a month, that's a surprise. And it's because they're on another call, rather than out of service.
How many rigs do they have for that area?
Just one.
Okay.
I think they have a spare, but they run just one a day. But they don't do a whole lot of calls. They can go a whole week and not hear them get dispatched for anything. So if they don't have,
Yeah, no, we're probably taking the lion's share of the county's calls, aren't we?
pretty close. City of Wausau would be more. Again, you know, like there's a lot of houses there. And then Corona, probably pretty close with Corona Ambulance. They have a pretty good sized area too. They try to run 2 trucks every day. And,
How is Corona Ambulance doing?
they're doing pretty well. And I know that they're,
I mean, they've had times where they were teetering on the edge of disaster.
they had G-Men years ago. I think they're doing pretty well now. I think their staff is pretty comfortable. They have a couple level of staffing there. Their wages went up some a few years ago, and then I don't know that they're raising their household assessment anytime soon, but I've heard that they are. I think it's Twin Township Ambulance is getting more than $100 per household right now. They just
They
raised
cover the
theirs.
north,
Yep, New Lothrop area.
which there's no households.
Exactly.
I mean, that's one of their problems, right?
Yeah, right. Well, they cover that, and Twin Township means, what township is that? I just said.
Hazelton, New
Hazelton
Haven.
Township, and then they go into Saginaw County for Maple Grove Township. That's the twin, but they also go into Genesee County some too. So their call volume is higher than it would be if they just had those 2 townships, because Maple Grove Township, there's nothing there, and there's nothing in Hazelton Township either. New Haven Township is covered by Corona.
I've been told that a lot of the other ones, including MMR, were waiting to see what we did.
Yep, I was told that same thing.
You know,
See what we did.
They were gonna see what we did, and then everybody else was gonna follow.
Yep. So anyway, I don't know I hope that answered your questions.
Boy, it did, guy. We gotta say,
Yeah, no, none of us are happy about it, but I think
solid
we,
or
Yeah,
you know, I mean, you know, like I said, the mayor and I met, you know, a week ago and talked all about it, because I wanted to make sure the city and us were at least on the same page and all that, and I mean, they're not happy about it either, but I mean, if we want to continue to have a 24/7 ALS ambulance, this is what it's gonna be, and
Yeah.
I think the majority of people want that, you know.
you know, another thing that gives us somewhat of a disadvantage is we are our own thing. The city of Lansing, if they need a new fire truck, they go to the city and the city has money for that and give them the money. Now, I'm not saying it's easily done, but they don't live as a separate entity from the city. So, you know, whatever they need, they can get easier than what we can, because we're limited to the number. I remember way back in the day, we went to the city of Perry and Perry Township to buy a truck.
We both had, the township board and the city council both had to approve the fire department's budget.
Yes,
It was an intergovernmental thing, and of course, usually that worked okay, but I mean, sometimes it didn't.
right.
And sometimes other political disputes drug the fire department into the middle of it.
Yeah, it did. And then, you know what, there was one time that I can remember, I think we paid 40 or maybe somewhere around $50,000. We needed a fire truck. And it was outside of our budget. The city of Perry and Perry Township split the cost of that and bought it for us. That's the only time that it came to the point where the municipalities actually put more in than what they contributed.
But I mean, at the time too, we levied a separate fire operating millage, but the city paid it out of the general fund,
Yes.
and, I mean, there was a whole bunch of things going on there. And it was felt that creating a separate entity moved a lot of, it became less of our problem anyway,
Yeah.
you know, I think, but it gave you more autonomy and, you know,
And it
there
also,
weren't the problems.
yeah, the downside is we can't rely on the municipalities, like you guys have all that money that you're just talking about, you guys are rich. The city of Perry, you know, they're holding back all kinds of money, I'm sure they're rich too.
They're zero. My faith can tell us they're zero.
I'm kidding, I know that everybody's broke, but it just takes that out of the equation for us, it really does. Unless we were to go beg for money, you know, we could do that obviously, and it was something you'd have to take out of your general fund.
But I think everyone, you know, and I mentioned this in some meetings and everything, there's been some criticism of, oh my God, why did we let it get, you know, so far, I mean, credit deserves that, that was able to stay at $45 for 15 years.
20
I mean,
years.
Not quite.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right, because 2005 was new.
2005, right?
15.
But I mean, PMSA raised it from 35 to 45 just in that last year type
Yeah.
thing.
Yep.
But I mean, that deserves credit that we were able to hold it that way for so long.
Yeah, and that's been one of my arguments, or one of my posts, is that, you know, we did it because it was fiscally responsible.
Right.
You know, when we first went to the taxpayers for the millage for fire, we went for 1.25 mils. We only levied 1 mil for a very, very long time, because that's all we needed. We could have levied the 1.25 and collect all kinds of cash, we could have done it. Well, then it got to the point where, okay, 1 mil's not enough anymore, let's start levying.
You gotta retain the help. You know, you gotta retain the help.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is years ago when we started collecting 1.25, and the fire department doesn't pay for any of the full-time staff. It comes all out
Right,
of the
they're
EMS.
separate monies.
Yeah, separate money, completely separate.
Put this in perspective, Guy. Troy and I had a meeting, he drove, I rode with him, and we drove over to the meeting on the property that on Old Lansing Road that burned down, you know, had a gas station in it.
Uh-huh.
They had the DDA.
Labels.
Troy had to fill up his truck. Now, you know, I wouldn't pay no attention, you know, if my car, I might put $12 in, you know, I think it hit 49, 50, 51, you know, I mean, that's just one day, you know?
Yeah.
You know, so,
Yeah, well, on the way back from Minneapolis, I put $130 worth of diesel fuel in it in one time,
yeah,
and it wasn't empty.
and that's $4 or $5 a
Yeah,
gallon.
So our procedure is, in our resolution, our time to adjust ours is in September.
okay.
So that's, you know, we'll be at our September meeting, you know, we'll have to send out notices in August and stuff for it. So if you mentally pencil that in, maybe as a meeting you can
I
come
was
to.
just gonna say, give me a reminder, mark a
Yeah, mark
reminder
and
or something,
remind
so
you.
that I can be here again.
And the
for that.
Village of Morris is the first one for a hearing, and theirs is next week,
And I'll see if I can make that too. You said
Next- Tuesday,
Tuesday.
at 6.
Okay,
The Village Hall.
I'll try to make that. But you know, the bottom line is, I wanna make this point, is we have good staff. Very, very good staff. Right now, I'd like to keep as many of those as we can. And it's through the benefits and wages that we were able to provide them now. Because it's been criticized, we weren't fiscally responsible, we shouldn't have given that much of a raise. But we had to get to the point where we were at least, they were grossly underpaid. That's my term that I've used for as long as we started this. And during the contract negotiations, I was the one that said, no, we need to raise this a little bit. Their starting wages. So I'm not kicking myself for that now, but I'm glad that we were able to offer a wage that's at least more compatible than what it used to be before, because, you know, they're worth it. So we want to make sure.
Well,
we
if
keep
we're
them.
similar to Owasso City, that's probably right where we need to be, so.
And we're very close in wages to Wausau City. You know, their benefits are different. Their benefits aren't as good as ours. They aren't MERS, so they don't get that. And they pay everybody the same amount of money, and then they get like a paramedic bonus at the end of the year if they're depending on your license level. Their contract is a lot different than ours, but bottom line is we're very close to them in wages.
All right,
Okay, all right. Thank you for coming.
thank you.
All right, thank you for listening.
Got one thing left.
Kelly, talk about it, Kelly.
So I got a hold of Mid-Michigan Spray Foam and US Insulation to this place. Currently, there's batten insulation that hangs above the ceiling grids. If we were to do something like this, then we would have to remove all of that batten insulation, and then the rafters, not the rafters, but
The beams.
roof boards would be sprayed with insulation. So the prices that you see there is what they quoted us, and I think it's a little over the top. So I don't know what you guys think about that, if we have any suggestions on what else to do.
Well, I know that when we look at what happened with the parking lot, I don't think the prices are really gonna go down.
No?
Yeah, but
It seems like a lot of money to
It's a lot
insulate
of
the
money.
road.
Sure
just
does.
just
It does.
put a little insulation.
Especially when we're really only talking about this part of
Oh,
it.
no, it's the whole.
It's the
Oh,
whole,
it's the whole
it's
It's
the whole
all
thing.
Okay.
This is all open. Like that wall just goes above to the drop ceiling, it's all open.
I think we'll keep our options open.
So, I mean, the main reason why I suggested this is because we were paying $800 a month in utility bills in the wintertime. It's kind of,
Yeah, it was higher than it normally is.
but when this came back, I don't know.
And one option we have is we have several bats that have come down, which is not helping the
Over
situation.
there, yeah, but for the most part, there's just batting that's tied up.
Yeah, what
About
it
the
is
ceiling grid.
there's bats tied, fastened up to the rafters, and then there's the drops.
Well, I guess that would be the other question. Is there any options of other ways to insulate as efficiently? I mean, I don't think
We
so.
can't
I-
blow
spray foams.
insulation in because it would be too heavy to lay on the bats and
Right.
they would fall down. So
I
that's
mean, you have to
not
lay
an
on this, we can't do that.
No.
So that's not an option. Are we losing the heat out of the ceiling? I don't know, but this room is freezing.
Can't consumers come in and,
Ask them to do an energy assessment.
yeah,
I've got a thermal imaging camera, I can show you in the wintertime where all your heat's going.
Should have done that one a month
Should have
ago.
done it, yep.
well, I'm not so sure we're not gonna have a little bit more weather when the heat's gonna need to be running.
And we should have run it today, it's kind of chilly in here right now.
But I would think that would be something, where are we sitting with ARPA money? What do we have left?
Well, we have a fair amount left. I mean, now we had earmarked it for so far this year. Well, we talked about doing something with the insulation, although we weren't thinking it was gonna be quite that expensive. We gotta deal with the drain in the parking lot. That was our number one.
And I really think if we're gonna do anything, that
That's
needs
the
to be taken.
priority.
Yeah,
The water was clear up by the front row
Oh.
parking spaces.
Yeah.
It was
Sterile.
awful.
yeah. No, so that was on our list, and then we were also gonna do some work on the bathrooms.
Okay. Well,
So, I mean,
I
yes.
don't
no-
see any reason we can't hold back a little while here, but
I know, I
let's see
think-
if we can get consumers to come do an audit.
Don't do that.
Yeah, no, they were, probably will.
At least that would give us some verification that that's gonna help us.
Yeah.
I mean, the windows are crap too, when the wind blows in the wintertime.
The blinds
shutters
move.
go like this, so. I don't know, anyway,
But it's a big building too.
It is a big.
It's a big
We
building.
did a good job on the floor.
and because it's so
this
cold out here, my office, we have to run a heater in there all the time.
Well,
season. And my office.
and the thing with the spray foam is it kinda seals it,
Yeah.
other than if you relay all the bats up there, you still have more leakage than you would with something sprayed on the surface.
Yeah, and that was one of the questions I asked them, is, well, can we leave the bats up there?
That's
Can
what-
you spray it and then just leave the bats there? They said, oh, no, you can't do that.
See,
I said, I don't know why not.
See, the problem is then a lot of that heat's gonna be between
The way I
the
use.
roof and this ceiling too, right? I mean, because it's gonna get trapped up there.
And that can cause damage to your roof and stuff too.
These are brand new, so
The
that,
roofs are pretty good, basically,
Yeah.
5, 6 years.
all
Well,
right.
we keep it on.
But we gotta tackle the parking lot first.
Yep, absolutely.
Yes, I agree with that.
All right, public
Okay.
comments.
So I'll email these people back and say we're on hold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, what time is it?
Motion to adjourn,
Second.
All right, what time is it? 8?
8:43.
Okay.
Oh, boy.